There was a discussion recently about a woman in her late 20s who unintentionally harmed her relationship by stating, "I don't see you as a hookup or friends with benefits material, but as someone I'd want long-term." The man she was dating heard this, panicked, and left the house. Their mutual friends agreed it was a thoughtless and insensitive comment. This post went viral on Reddit and crossed over to Twitter, where people have been debating whether the man's response was justified or hasty. I personally believe he was right. Has there ever been a woman you were dating or in love with who said something so thoughtless or insensitive that it made you realize you could no longer be with her? Story 1. My partner told me her romantic relationship with her best friend was the best relationship she has ever had. Story 2. A girl I was dating told me, "You would be perfect if you had a six-pack." It made me feel very self-conscious afterward. Story 3. My ex and I were having an argument about a male friend of hers. Things got heated, and at one point she said to me, "Maybe I will be with him. I already was with a friend once, a different guy that I forgave her for. So I'll do it again." I immediately hung up, blocked her, and moved on. Story 4. I will consider your money our primary source of income, while mine is already compromised by my business. So are you telling me that my money will be our money, but yours is only yours? I paid the check, and in the most educated way possible, I told her that I was searching for a life partner, not interested in a master-slave relationship. At least the tiramisu was a good, authentic Italian recipe. Story 5. My ex from college wanted me to come see her since we went to different schools. I was sick and told her I wanted to visit, but I really didn't feel well. Her response was, "I don't care." Story 6. My wife recently told me, in the 20th year of our marriage, when I asked her why she spoke so highly of oral and passionate sex that didn't last past the honeymoon, that's what you tell a guy to hook him. Around the same time, she detailed all the men she had been involved with before meeting me. After 20 years of wondering what I was doing wrong, I finally received an answer. I was doing nothing wrong. She had just told me what she thought I wanted to hear to get married and have children. Story 7. If I found someone like you but better, I would leave you in a second. It's not as bad as it seems in context, but still awful. In my head, I thought, this person, but that was her entire personality. Probably one of the most egocentric people I've ever dated. Not only did she never think about anyone but herself, but it seems she never even considered anyone other than herself. And she is a teacher. Story 8. My ex once told me on the morning of my birthday that she wasn't sure if we could have just been friends with benefits because I didn't have a six-pack or a large anatomy. This caused the biggest emotional meltdown of my entire adult life, and my self-esteem has never fully recovered a decade later. Story 9. Not a partner, but a crush that, in retrospect, thankfully fell away. "Oh honey, I have slept with a lot of both men and women, romantically and otherwise," she said in a rather condescending tone. I cannot recall the exact context of the conversation, but I do remember that her comment and lack of initiative really made me lose interest in her. Story 10. That I will never find anyone else. Also, why can't they take care of their own children when I offered to babysit for family? Story 11. When someone shames another person by calling their private parts small, it creates an uncomfortable situation. This has happened before, and while that person undermined others to gain some advantages, it is still not acceptable behavior. Individuals who are petty or sadistic may treat you similarly if you cross them, often without you realizing it. Can be quite frightening. Story 12. My ex told me she had another man marry her because I wasn't man enough to give her a ring. She wasn't right. I ordered a ring for her and wanted to give her a surprise on New Year's Eve, but I got ghosted. All the belongings I had spent on her, she took with her. She was my live-in partner. She wanted some time, and during that time, I was working while she collected all my belongings and disappeared. She blocked me on social media. 3 months later, I heard from the neighbor that she had her bridal shower in her hometown. 2 months after that, she unblocked me and chatted with me. I dodged a huge bullet, but it's sad. I wanted to give her a ring in a special way, but I got backstabbed instead. However, I moved on. It's been 6 years and I got married. I have a wonderful life with my wife and two adorable dogs. Story 13. My wife and I have been together for a long time. We've had many big fights, some ending really badly, but we've always come back from them just fine. Usually, a little time and her calming her emotions down and thinking for a while helps. When I was young, I was routinely called stupid by my dad. He derogatorily remarked that I was stupid and even told other people I was stupid. I'm no Hawking or Einstein, but I'm far from stupid. So, I have a rule that I've had my entire adult life, which I shared with my wife very early on. I can roll with whatever name you call me, but do not call me stupid. She did once, only once. She said, and I quote, "If that's how you're going to think about it, you must be really stupid." The fight was not at all worthy of that kind of hit, and she knew it. The second she said it, the air left the room. My father was very abusive and gifted me the burden of a wild temper. I can't recall much of what happened after that. I know I left, but I don't know where I went or for how long. I know I came home and slept on the couch. The next morning, we kissed and made up, and she apologized for it. There's never been a problem again. Story 14. I caught my girlfriend of 2 years messaging her ex. It was not to hook up, just talking out of the blue in a somewhat flirtatious manner. I called her out on it, and she agreed she messed up. However, she later backtracked, saying she didn't see anything wrong with being friends. I told her that if she wanted to be friends with him, that was fine, but she could do it from her parents' place or her own apartment, not mine. He obviously wanted to hook up, and they wouldn't be doing it in my bed. She understood the message and backed down, realizing I was willing to end the relationship over it rather than deal with that drama. Story 15. I was really into a girl for a while who just did not reciprocate. I ended up sleeping with her sister and her best friend. It just happened, not out of revenge. The original girl then became interested in me, and we had a friends with benefits arrangement for about 6 months. She then told me that she could never date me since I was only good for sex. I immediately ended the friends with benefits arrangement. I have now been married for 11 years, and this girl still tries to contact me once or twice a year. I'm only thinking about this because it was recently my anniversary, and this girl managed to get my contact information and messaged me 2 days prior. Story 16. I agree with the person leaving the house. She saw stability and not any real sexual attraction. I would go as well. Story 17. An ex told me she wouldn't have intimacy with a person who had no previous sexual experience, which she knew I was. There was nowhere to go from there. Story 18. It is a lengthy list, but I am certain her list is just as extensive. Throughout my career, I have experienced some successes, and when I shared them with her, she showed jealousy and resentment instead of happiness. This made it clear to me that she does not view me as a teammate. Rather, she sees me as a competitor. This realization hurt and diminished my trust in her. Knowing that I have someone in my home who sees me as an opponent has not exactly eased my mind. Story 19. Wait, I'm a bit confused. How is her saying he's not a friend with benefits or hookup material, but someone she'd want long-term, a bad thing? Doesn't she mean that she wants to be with him and not just have a casual encounter? Story 20. Quite a few things. She cheated with at least 15 people. You shouldn't trust me to be alone with him because I would let him do anything he wanted to me in a heartbeat. He's the guy I wish I had been with. I never imagined myself being with a guy like you. On top of being compared to all of her other partners and how she was intimate with them, she acted like a hermit with me and wouldn't even touch me. She told me she'd never marry me or have my children in her life because she'd be embarrassed, but she talked about adopting with the other partners and having their babies. Then, when we broke up the first time, the first thing she did was unblock the guy she said she'd let do everything to her and chatted all night while I was ignored. She said a lot of messed up things, but that one really takes the cake. Story 21. Anyone have the original post? I'm curious about the comments. As for me, I'm not going to share what was said. We were in a friends with benefits situation at the time, so I took the comment about her ex with grace and let her know I was not like that. However, as I've gotten older, being compared to your ex has become less tolerable. Story 22. I remember 2 years ago on the day my ex asked me to be together with him after dating for a few months. I was so delighted I immediately said yes because I was deeply in love with him and had never felt as comfortable with anyone. It really felt serious. Right after that, he said, "Great, because if you had said no, I'd probably have asked someone else." What the hell? Everything shattered. I don't know why I continued to be with him and endure pain, fighting for our love for over a year. In reality, we were truly together for only a moment before everything was destroyed. It was literally doomed from the very beginning. Imagine that. Never base your love on passionate pain, no matter how deep it feels. Story 23. Not bad enough that I couldn't be with her anymore. She is my wife after all. But she made a comment one time about how the butterflies were gone for her, which happens after some time in a long-term relationship, so it wasn't a huge deal to me. It only sucked for me because they weren't gone for me yet, but that comment certainly made them leave. Story 24. When I was a teenager, I had something very similar. I said to my partner at the time, "You're not my usual type, but you're everything I need." At the time, I genuinely thought it would be a kind or romantic thing to say. Their reaction suggested that was not the case, and we later had to unpack it. I still cringe thinking about it. Lesson learned. Do not compare your partner to ideals or anything else in general. Celebrate their individuality for what it is. Story 25. Back when my dad was dying, my mother didn't get my then 2-year-old son a birthday present. I certainly understood. Dad was in a lot of pain and only had about 3 months to live, which put an awful lot of stress on my mom. My ex-wife said in front of several others, "I know her husband is dying and all, but she should have gotten him something for his birthday." I almost left that night. She showed me where a husband fell in her hierarchy of importance and who she really was. However, we had 2 kids aged 4 and 2 years, and I didn't want to disrupt everything. I lasted a dozen more years in misery with her. I never understood how someone could have so little empathy. Story 26. So many sad stories, and it makes me feel sorry for the individuals who are used and mistreated. This is why I advise my friends to be with a woman who likes them slightly more than they like her. When women have leverage in a relationship, they can behave negatively compared to men. Story 27. Nothing too bad yet, but English is her second language, so she sometimes has difficulty articulating things in a diplomatic way. I remind her when she gets upset to think through what she really wants to say because you can apologize, but you can never take back the words you say. The other person will always remember them. Story 28. Do you know how many people I declined for you? I walked away from that relationship and never went back. Story 29. Not a man, but I was honest when a guy I dated in the first few months asked me if I thought he had a nice penis size. I said I thought it was average because everyone I had seen looked more or less the same as his. He never let it go. We dated for 5 years, and he still joked about having an average-sized penis, but I truly meant it as a compliment. Never again. Story 30. I had a girlfriend once tell me, in the middle of making out, that she could never love me. We had sex anyway, but I knew the relationship wouldn't work. I had some fun and moved on. Story 31. This thread made me realize how some things that are a compliment to women are the opposite for men. Honestly, it's all done and said without ill intentions. As a woman, I would feel good if someone sees me as a long-term partner. That said, I may have said some things to men that I now realize might have come off as offensive because he may interpret them differently. Story 32. After the birth of our 4th child, my ex said, "I am done with you." She looked shocked and then quickly clarified that she was done having any more kids. The marriage for me ended in that delivery room, and we were just roommates until it finally came to an end. Story 33. I was going to comment that this is the first time I read all the comments of a post. Then I remembered posts with 1 or 2 comments, so there is no accomplishment here. Story 34. I'm still with her, so I don't know if it counts, but my girlfriend once told me she was my blessing because we split everything evenly. She actually makes more money than I do, has less debt, and I don't ask her for anything. Story 35. If they start insulting you during arguments, you should end the relationship immediately. Do not tolerate that behavior. If you confront them and they respond with, "I said that because you made me angry," it is best to break up with them. The only acceptable response is, "I'm sorry." If they attempt to justify their insults, it shows they are not ready for a serious relationship. Story 36. If I were in your position with your resources and influence, I would have left you a long time ago, my ex-wife said before I left her. I don't even have resources and influence. I just have a job. Story 37. I caught a glimpse of her text conversation with one of my best friends at the time. We were around 16 years old and sexually active. She had some emotional issues due to family deaths, and she was chatting with one of my best male friends and, of course, a male friend of hers. Apparently, she had forgotten to tell me that he was over at her place and held her in bed. They did nothing else because our other female friend was present. Basically, she cried in her bed, and he thought it was a great idea to spoon my girlfriend to comfort her. She said, "It was just a nice gesture. I didn't think it was nice at all." I walked around with a pit in my stomach for weeks whenever they interacted. Story 38. The worst thing I ever had a girlfriend say was, "You're lucky you don't have to pay for college. I'm not working to pay for college right now because of the life insurance from my mom, and she knew that." Story 39. I don't see you as a hookup or friends with benefits material, but as someone I'd want for a long-term relationship. And why is that a bad thing? I am genuinely asking. Story 40. He is told by a woman in a relationship that he is not someone she would casually be with. Instead, she sees him as someone with whom she wants a long-term commitment, children, and a life together, and that is considered a bad thing? My wife has only said something she regretted once in the last 30 years, and that was after my best friend died when she brought up some resentment about our friendship from 18 years ago. That did not go well, and there were a couple of rough days. However, since we are adults, we dealt with it. Story 41. I'm confused. She said she didn't see him as just someone to be with casually, but rather as someone she could have a long-term relationship with. Can you please explain the insult here? I'm very literal, and no matter how I look at this, I can't see the insult, but I would like to understand. Story 42. People are overly sensitive. Should we discuss this? No, I'll just avoid commitment. And the friends are foolish. Story 43. I don't understand how this is insensitive to the guy. I don't see you as a hookup or friends with benefits material, but as someone I would want long-term. Story 44. The way I interpret that quote is that the woman is letting her partner know that she desires a more committed relationship with a man she is presumably already involved with. She is informing him that she doesn't see him as temporary or just for fun, but as someone with whom she wants to establish a connection. This doesn't necessarily mean she is thinking about marriage. Rather, she wants to stay with him for a while. For me, being on the receiving end of this would be reassuring and comforting, though it is important to acknowledge that there is quite a bit of context missing from the situation. From a man's perspective, what is wrong with expressing this? Is it that it brings up a similar sentiment to discussing marriage, and he just wasn't ready to talk about that yet? Story 45. It's insensitive to tell someone you don't view them as an object. It seems like a strange compliment. The guy panicked and left because all he wanted was physical intimacy. It's no surprise that relationships between men and women can be confusing. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.